Welcome back to the Inner Compass podcast. Myself, Scott Kidd, and my good friend Eddie Austin here. It's great to be back, Eddie. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing fantastic. I can't believe we're at episode 27.
Yeah, I can't believe it either, man. This was just like it was just a thought, and then it was a blip, and then now it's happening, and it's happened over and over again. But let's get into it. Today the conversation is something that's subtle but powerful. It's apologizing for putting yourself first. A lot of people don't realize what they're doing, but is saying things like, sorry, I need a break, or I feel bad for choosing myself. But you shouldn't feel bad about putting yourself first. You shouldn't have to apologize for putting yourself first.
You shouldn't. I mean, at the end of the day, if you've got the dream and the vision and you know exactly what needs to happen, like block it out, man. Everything else is a distraction. And, there's been certain relationships that I've certainly set guardrails and boundaries around to say, hey, look, this is what I'm doing during today. And I've got somebody wanting access to something. I usually send them to a picture of my calendar and I'm like, hey, this is what my day looks like. And
Hmm.
I'm very intentional, very strategic about how I spend my time.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of times we're taught to apologize. And I have a habit sometimes saying, "I'm sorry, I need to do this," and I don't need to say I'm sorry for doing this. Like, hey, this is what I'm doing, you know, because it puts you like in a light that maybe you feel guilty for shutting that person out or something like that. But we're taught that we're supposed to apologize for doing for ourselves, but that's really not the case. We shouldn't be doing that. We should be taking care of ourselves first, because if not, we can't take care of other people.
Absolutely. And I think we're kind of quietly taught just being good means to be accommodating, being available, being useful. And when you stop doing that, even for health reasons, it it begins to break into unspoken rules that we don't put on our life. Like we don't put up boundaries, like we don't put up guardrails. And I'm not saying like completely block people out of our life, but if there's something that's like super responsible for you to accomplish this year, especially like health. Man, I know so many people that have put the health in the back seat because they're a natural born caretaker.
Mm-hmm.
So they're supposed to be available. They're supposed to be accommodating. They're supposed to be useful at any point. And they kind
Yeah.
of like completely like let their life be consumed by just caretaking alone.
Yeah, this is so very true, especially like if you're the dependable one or the strong one, or the one people lean on. And I'm guilty of this, a lot of times on the boat, because people lean on me and depend on me to make the decision. You yourself as a business owner, as a dad, and everything, yourself myself as a dad too. A lot of times I'm dependable. I'm dependent on to make those decisions, and it's okay to take care of yourself first.
Exactly. I mean, the apology usually isn't for the other person. It's usually for the discomfort we feel by choosing ourselves. And we kind of train not to do that.
Yeah, I mean that's powerful. I mean we internalize the idea that our needs are an inconvenience, but it's a thing, selfish versus self-directed. you know I want to kind of draw a line here, because often this is misunderstood. There's a difference between being selfish and being self-directed.
Mm, hmm Huge difference. Like selfish is taking without regards for others. Self-directed is kind of leading your life with intention so you don't end up just resenting and burn out and disconnected, because I think that's the problem is we get resentful to certain things that happen and we get burned out and then we just get disconnected.
Yeah, and the burnout doesn't come from doing too much. It comes from doing too little for ourselves and abandoning ourselves too often.
That's the part that I think a lot of people miss. It's when you
Most definitely.
consistently override your needs, your body, and your nervous system keeps score. Everything just comes unwound, and like you don't know how to do it. You don't know how to handle it.
Yeah, and then one day you snap or shut down or check out, and everyone's lost because they're usually used to you being there, and they're confused. And maybe they're resentful, and they're like, "Well, where's Scott? Where's Eddie? Where's?"
Right. Boundaries aren't rejection. They're clarity, in my opinion. And clarity is kindness. I always talk about setting up those boundaries, but even when it's uncomfortable, like there's so many things going on. Like just this week, yesterday, for instance, my wife knew that we had this, like, she had a very busy schedule. She had things to do. She knows that I had a busy schedule, that I had things to do. And there was a pop up. There was a something that came up. And suddenly the anxiety just rose to the surface.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, hey, let's talk about this because this is uncomfortable. What can we do? What can we block? What can we not do to help figure this out? And I think,
Yeah,
what do you think about that?
yeah. I mean that. A lot of times we have to kind of see where it all fits together, especially when these things pop up, because things are always popping up. If things pop up, we need to be ready for those things and not put ourselves last, because I keep having a lot of other things in my personal life pop up that I need to deal with. It's either I deal with it now or it becomes bigger later. And if I don't deal with it within myself, it's going to be much worse for everywhere else. And that's where we get to leadership and responsibility. This is how this shows up in hard in leadership. As a captain, a lot of times if I'm exhausted, emotionally short, or unclear, the rest of the boat's going to feel that way. And I'm sure that's the same way in your business, your family, my business, my family. Same thing. If I'm down, everyone knows it, everyone feels it, and we all kind of move on that same morale trade line.
Yeah, man, right on. I mean, people don't realize that self neglect just makes you noble and it makes you unpredictable. In those situations, like if you don't really put these things like first and just don't neglect yourself, you become really unpredictable in other people's eyes.
Yes, because it gets back to like what we were talking about before, like your your checkbook's going to be empty, your account's going to be empty, because at a certain point you won't be able to give anymore, and you will check out. This is such an important point, that putting yourself first isn't abandoning your responsibility. It's your responsibility because everyone depends on you.
Absolutely. It's like I call it the credit and debit section with friendship and
Yeah.
relationships, and the most grounded leaders that I know are the ones that protect their energy and they're unapologetic. And they're not aggressively with this. They're just calm and they just state it like they put it out front.
Yeah. It's very important to realize that calm leadership requires self-respect. And if you don't have respect for yourself, you're not going to respect other people.
No.
It's just not going to happen. The same thing. If you don't love yourself, if I don't love me, I'm not going to love you, Eddie Austin. If I'm not happy, I'm not going to be happy with you. And it's just something that we need to reframe. Here's the reframe I keep coming back to. You don't owe anyone an apology for choosing your alignment over approval.
So true. And alignment doesn't mean that everyone's going to agree with you. It means you're honest with yourself. And I think that time you become honest with others as well.
Yeah, and that's where, if you're not honest with yourself, that's where we get lost. And it's often because we don't know what we want, and if we keep apologizing for ourselves, we never find it.
No, not a bit. That's when the inner compass stops working, in my opinion. When you just ignore it long enough, it just goes quiet. You just kind of lose direction.
Yeah, and and then that's the part where we start outsourcing our decisions. We get guilty of different expectations, or fear comes in. And it's something that we need to do is like have like some way of making this practical. Let's make this practical. Like, here's three simple shifts we can try. First, notice the apology. Sorry, I can't. Sorry, I need to. Then pause.
Replacing apology with ownership is right in line with that. I think that at that moment I'm choosing rest. I'm choosing prioritization in this, and that's the right thing to do. And explanation is required, but just take that time to rest, to prioritize things in your life and do that right. And just explain it. Just explain it well to the people that are affected by that or not affected by it or just need to understand more.
Yeah, and I liked your example of earlier where you sent somebody your calendar. This is what it looks like for me, right? This is what I'm doing right now. And they got to be okay with that. That, okay. So you explain to them, hey, I'm resting now. And the third thing you need to do is you got to hold the line. You can't go back on that. Discomfort doesn't mean you're wrong. It usually means you're changing a pattern.
Yeah. And I think the people who truly respect you, they'll adjust. The ones who don't, well, let's put it this way. The ones that really don't benefit are the ones you're not honest with. So when you're benefiting someone from your silence, they should understand because you're not silenced to be hurtful. You're being silent because you're expressing professionalism and leadership to sometimes take longer thought on certain things, which is very important.
Yeah, never underestimate the power of silence. The greatest leaders I've met in my life and just read about were better listeners and better at leadership because most of the time they were silent and quiet because they observed and they watched and they took care of themselves first. And that's the thing is same thing like we've discussed, like in the airplane when the oxygen mask dropped down, you have to get oxygen first before you take care of the child or take care of the other people. And so many times in our lives we get wrapped up with doing things for others. Both of us are givers. If people ask, we usually don't think about it. We just do it. And that's not something. It's okay to say no sometimes. And you don't need to apologize for it because maybe you don't have enough juice. Maybe you don't. Maybe you got too many debits there. Too many debits and you can't move forward without doing this. And if I would know that in my life, especially like just coming off the boat, and I know before that I had a really busy schedule and did all these events, and we were doing a lot of things. We were doing these podcasts and everything, which actually that's in my energizing section. Like this gives me a lot of energy, and as we were talking before we started, but it's now that I feel now that like, okay, now it's my time to kind of say, oh, I'm not doing this at a certain point. I'm shutting off. And it's a good tip for everyone is like Eddie always says, is schedule your time like the big ass calendar here. Make sure that you schedule your time for yourself and your things and make sure that you do those things. What's one recommendation you can have to help people with this and not apologize for taking care of themselves?
I think number one, when you stop apologizing for your needs, you start honoring your direction. And I'm a firm believer. I'm now in my second year of that great big calendar behind you. And that's really when you set your direction and you let the most important people in your life know that what the direction looks like, they can kind of get on board and attach to that. Like if you're going to write a book, for instance, you have to, if that's something that you're going to do and it really means a lot to you and it's going to impact others, a lot of the things that we do, it's a lot of impact to other people. So it's very important that we accomplish these tasks and do these things that are really important in life. But if it's not on our calendar, it means that it's being ran over by everything else in our life. So like you have to like put the blinders on, like you have to block everything out. You're like, nope, I'm in the middle of writing my manuscript because I
Hmm.
know when I finish this book, it's going to help a lot of people. And that's what you have to do. I mean, I spent 5 years trying to write a book. And I say trying because it wasn't on the calendar as much as it should be. Like,
Yeah.
I did not say no enough to protect my time to get this done. And I've had a couple people read the original copy, and dude, they couldn't set it down because
Mm.
they were just so ingrained in the lessons and the story of that. Well, what would have happened if I never wrote that book? Those
Hmm.
lives would have never been impacted. There's people now that have decided to write a book that has an amazing life story just because they read mine. Like,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. But if I didn't like say no and didn't apologize for that and like know my worth and know, hey, I'm putting the oxygen on first, I'm doing this, then I would have never finished it.
Yeah, it just reminds me of something. There's been several times in my life where people ask me, "Well, what do you think? Should I go and do this or what have you?" Like one person was thinking about going back to school and doing something else. Another guy was talking about he said, "Well, I was thinking about getting my pilot license and everything." And this is in the last few years, and I talked to him recently, and I said, remember the time you told me I told you I was gonna get my pilot license and stuff, and I wanted to do that, and the first thing you said was go do it. And you know what? I never really thought about it, but after that, I did it and I got it, and I'm flying now. So he's flying now, and that made me
That's
really
awesome.
proud and really happy. Well, one, I was ecstatic for him because he loves flying. I know you love flying
I
too, and
love flying.
so it's one of those things where somebody else that wanted to be a baker or what have you. I told them just go do it. But what's the next steps for you to go do that? And they said, "Oh, I just need to do this." I said, "Well, go do that." And same thing with your book. How much that somebody might read your book and go, "Wow, I should be doing this," and the next thing you know, they're whatever, hiking up Kilimanjaro or Mount Everest or flying fighter jets or whatever, just because they read your book and were inspired to do so. So you don't need to apologize to go and be great or go and do the great things that you need to do. You know, because when your direction is clear, your leadership, your relationships, and your peace follows. Because when you're clear, nothing else really matters. It's like this calendar here. You prioritize and say, put these things in red. These are the things that are important to me. Then it's very clear. Like we were discussing before this, people can get overwhelmed by looking at a calendar. But for me, it kind of makes me clear, it makes me calm because like, okay, this is what I'm doing. I don't have to wonder. I won't get sidetracked because like this day I'm doing this, that there's nothing else for me to do. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, I think that when people run through life haphazardly, it can create a lot of stress and depression
Yeah.
because they just got so many things coming at them, but they're coming at them unplanned,
Yeah.
and just like that, the red on your calendar, I assume it's similar to mine. The red are the non-negotiables,
Yeah.
like these are blocked. So, if somebody calls you up and says, "Hey, Scott, can you come to this event? Can you, I want you to speak on stage, or I want you to, go host this meetup," and you just turn around and look and go, "Nope, can't."
No, I'm full that day. Yeah, that's definitely, and that's kind of for me. That's what clarity looks like, and life gets more clear when you have those non-negotiables there, and those things that you really shouldn't ever apologize for. Because if your family is the most important thing to you, you schedule that first, and you don't apologize for. Sorry, you don't ever say sorry. I'm going to be at my daughter's birthday. No, you say, hey, I get to be at my daughter's birthday. You
That's
know,
right. That's right.
we get to do all those things, and we shouldn't apologize for doing the right thing. That's what we should be doing anyway, and there's no sense in apologizing for any of it.
Not a bit, man. And let's say you're just used to saying yes, and you're used to just apologizing and feeling bad about it and then trying to fit it in somehow. like it's the round peg in a square hole. And suddenly you're like, well, I could travel down here and I could spend a couple hours and I could probably do that. And then I could be back for my daughter's birthday. And yeah, I think I can pull that off. And the thing is, I think I can.
Yeah.
And then what happens is, like we all know, just time gets away from us. Next thing you know, you're showing up your daughter's birthday 2 hours after it starts. Like everybody's upset.
Yeah.
Like now you have to apologize because you hurt somebody's feelings. It's a lot easier to just say, nope, sorry, can't
Yeah.
make
I'm
it.
not going. Yeah. I'll catch you next time. If you say to people like, "Hey, I have my daughter's birthday that day. Can we do it another time?" Most people go because they see that you prioritized your daughter. People respect that.
They do. Absolutely
Yeah.
do.
Because a lot of people say they put family first, but when they're working 18 hours a day and not seeing their family, we've all been guilty of that at some time or another, and realizing that, we're doing that we say we're doing it for our family, but if we're not there with our family, that's something we do need to apologize for.
Absolutely. What is it? It's like choosing themselves without guilt.
Yeah.
Choosing yourself without having guilt. And, I don't, because there's times I do work 18 hours a day, but there's
Yeah.
also times that I block a whole 4 hours or 6 hours to go do something that's very important to the family or
Yeah.
keep my availability for a certain item or a certain event with my family. The only reason that I can afford to do that is because I block at the right times to work strategically on one thing, like the biggest domino in the room. And
Yeah.
then there's times that I'm completely off for that whole day
Yeah.
simply to go do the right things.
Yeah, it's very true to do, segment out your time like that and make sure that these are the things that we want to do and never apologize for doing the right thing, because these are the things we're supposed to do. These are the reasons why we're working so hard for these things and for our families and for the next generations and stuff like that. So we shouldn't ever feel the need that somehow that's not okay, because that puts us in a secondary position, puts somebody ahead of us. But like we've been saying, if we put ourselves lower and put them on a higher thing, we just keep giving until we're depleted, then we become scattered, then we don't have any clarity, the path's not clear, we don't know where we should be, and there's where we really need the guidance. So it's just, may sound like a simple thing, but it can get very complicated when we're not taking care of ourselves.
Absolutely. Well, man, let's start wrapping it up. But first, I got to ask 2026, you got the calendar up, you're planning things out, you got the year planned out behind you, you're started to. What's 2026 look like for Scott Kidd and all his initiatives?
This is the year of the family. Now that my wife and I are empty nesters, we're going to be doing more things together, and we're figuring that out. As uncomfortable and as unused to it as we are, we're doing that. And then, with our daughters, we have some couple of times scheduled that we're going to be going and doing some trips. And then for the rest of it is, we're launching the fund for our development deals, and launching a couple of courses, and looking forward to helping a lot more people. Started a captain's crew check-in, or well, it's a crew check-in for yacht crew and stuff with another captain buddy. Going to continue doing this because this is giving me a lot more energy. I was telling you at the beginning, I was kind of getting tired just because I didn't take a break since I got off the boat. Really, I hit the ground running, and this is giving me more energy. And my daughter's birthday tomorrow, so more family time, more no more apologizing for anything I'm doing. What does it look like for Eddie Austin?
Man, it's an unbelievably exciting year. And it's a good year. We're going to be empty nesters next year, which
Nice.
is going to be, I'll be probably calling you for some advice, man. I'll be like, hey, man, how'd you handle this?
Well, have some.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, man, God has blessed us with just unbelievable opportunities. Our fund will be opening up here next month.
Nice.
And that's a really cool initiative. We bought the first business in the initiative, and it's going absolutely bonkers crazy in a good way. We're
Excellent.
distributing money, just all things, man. And it's unbelievable because I've not said yes to a lot of things last year, and it allowed me to focus from about July until where we sit today when we're recording this podcast. And those efforts, just knowing what we want and how fast we're going to go at it, it is really unlocking doors that we didn't even know existed. And it's
Excellent.
just going to be an exciting year. When you guys hear this podcast, hopefully you'll see the recording or you'll see us some of it on social media. So, you know, because I was able to have a open calendar during certain times, I had no idea what I signed up for. So I went to a conference up in Indy as a physicians conference, and I met some of the original founders of the money game, the money multiplier, which they do the infinite banking. It was
Okay.
a dad and a daughter. Well, the daughter came on, and she is unbelievably smart when it comes to infinite banking. Well, they're putting on a conference in Tampa in February.
Okay.
And she had asked, she goes, "Hey, Eddie, thank you so much for letting me come speak on your platform. Would you like to come speak on my platform?" And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." Well, you know me, man. I love the motivational tapes just like you do, like the YouTube
Yeah.
stuff, listen to Les Brown and all those guys.
Yeah.
Well, I can't believe it because I got the website link and I started looking down through there just to see if I was on the website. And I was, but who was above me was mind blowing. Les Brown is on the
Nice.
stage that I'll be on speaking, which is just, you just can't make this stuff up. Just absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. Cause I really look up to Les Brown, man. He's turned me up so many ways.
Yeah, that's fantastic that all these great things are happening. That's just a prime example of doing more by choosing less.
That's right.
We talk about that quite a bit, and that's something that I do at the end of the year and the beginning of the year. And there are things that I just talked about that I probably will be cutting out or outsourcing to where that I can focus on the fund and the development deals that we have going because that's the long term thing. And with our baseball themed hotels that are coming up in our development fund, it's going to be we're going to need all hands on deck for that one, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun one. I know you're big, used to play baseball. So, I mean, that was when I came to the States, that was baseball and apple pie, man. I used to love playing
The
baseball.
American pie, man. American
Yeah,
dream.
man. I used to love it, man. I mean, my favorite guy still to this day was Bo Jackson and Nolan Ryan. I remember hearing him when he pitched on the Astros. It was like a shotgun. I felt so bad for the guy that was catching. I know
Yeah.
they had to have extra padding,
Yeah.
but this has been awesome. This gives me a lot of energy, and hopefully you guys get a lot out of it. Please like, subscribe, comment, and you know, give us some insight into what you need help with. Comment below, share with your friends, and give us some feedback because we want to get better and help you get better.
Absolutely. We'll see you on the next one, guys. Thank you so much.